So welcome to the Facing Mental Illness, the Art of Acceptance panel discussion. I'm so honored today to have these four people with me to be on this panel, and you are very lucky to be able to hear what they all have to share with you, because these are some of the really bright spots in our community in terms of people who are advocating for the needs of people with mental illness. So I will give a brief introduction of our panelists, and then we'll give them each a few minutes to talk a little bit about their organization or program or area of interest. Then I'll be asking them a few questions, and then we'll leave a good amount of time, at least a half an hour at the end, where you may all pose your questions to particular panelists. And we do have a microphone right over here that if you have a question, we'll ask that you step up to the microphone and hold it fairly close to your mouth so that everyone can hear. And out of respect for everyone in the audience and for the members of our panel, I know as a parent of someone who has a mental illness that we all probably have personal stories to share about how mental illness has touched our lives. But unfortunately, we don't have time to hear everyone's story. So if I want to encourage you to ask questions, especially specific ones that these panelists will do a good job of answering. But if you'll refrain from telling a long part of your story, just because we don't have enough time for all that. So anyway, to my right is Erica Quartermain. Erica has been a Sarasota County judge since 2013, when Governor Scott appointed her to the position. She serves on the 12th Judicial Circuit in the civil and criminal divisions of the county court, and as the mental health court judge. She has also been the catalyst behind the creation of the new Comprehensive Treatment Court, a jail diversion program that directs chronic misdemeanor offenders with mental illnesses toward a comprehensive umbrella of services and treatment. Thank you for being here, Erica.
Thank you for including me.
And next to Erica is William McKeever. William is the executive director of Vincent House in Pinellas County and the soon-to-open Vincent Academy in Sarasota. Both organizations operate as public-private partnerships with strong community buy-in to provide a recovery through work model for individuals with mental health challenges. William is an ardent believer in the healing power of gainful employment for adults living with mental illness. Thanks for being here. Next, we have Scott Eller. Scott is the executive director and founder of the Sarasota-based nonprofit Community Affordable Supported Living, or CASTLE as it's known, which provides a diverse range of housing and care options to suit the needs of individuals with mental illnesses, developmental disabilities, co-occurring disorders, and histories of substance abuse. Thank you for being with us, Scott. And down at the end is my friend Wendy Abramson. Wendy is the president of NAMI Sarasota County, the local chapter of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and was instrumental in the revitalization of the Sarasota chapter in 2015. NAMI is the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization and a leading voice on mental health in the U.S. In Sarasota County, the NAMI affiliate works to improve the lives of individuals with mental illness, their families and caregivers through support group meetings, education courses, awareness, and advocacy, all services which they provide for free. So welcome to all our panelists, and we're going to give them each a few minutes to speak about their area of expertise. So Erica, we'll start with you.
All right. Is this working? Yes? Okay. So again, I'm Erica Quartermain. I'm a county judge, and I suppose my area of expertise would be overseeing criminal cases where individuals with mental illnesses are charged with a crime. And I think the first time I became acquainted with it was during judicial education. We go to a school when we become elected or appointed as a judge called Judicial College, and there was a gentleman named Steve Leifman from Miami who has really spearheaded a lot of the movement within the criminal system in the mental health arena. And so he spoke to us, and I remember him saying that, you know, when I became a judge, I didn't realize I would become the gatekeeper to the largest mental health facility in Miami-Dade County, which is, or was, the county jail. And I remember thinking, wow, that's exactly the way it is in Sarasota, too. And even in the preliminary, you know, the first months that I became a judge, I remember seeing the same people that I used to prosecute years prior who were coming before me now on the same types of crimes, trespass, lodging, open container, and I had prosecuted them, and the only thing that had changed was that they were older and had about 50 more criminal convictions. But I had gone through my life and progressed in other ways. So I became involved in the mental health court, which occurred in part because Judge Owens, who began it, along with drug court and a lot of very dynamic programs within this circuit, is on the verge of retiring. So one of the things he had to let go was mental health court. And after becoming involved with a couple of cases that were just really tragic, I sought to be the judge. And then I realized how many resources we were lacking and how we weren't reaching the most mentally ill people, the ones that were rotating in and out of jail. And after I began to study a lot of these individuals, I just realized how dire the situation was. So fast forward a few years, and now we have a couple different programs. Healthcare Court, which is for those who can meaningfully engage in outpatient treatment charged with eligible crimes. And then now, as of March 1st, we have Comprehensive Treatment Court, which is for those individuals who are seriously mentally ill, charged with eligible crimes, and are unable to meet their basic needs. So that is the jail diversion, and we are working through that, as well as the changes in the law on mental health and the criminal system. So it's been a process, and every day we are coming across a new challenge, from how to interpret the law to how we deal with the most difficult people. So it's always a challenge, but it's very, very exciting too, because we make a lot of progress.
Thank you, Erica. William?
Thank you. Again, my name is William McKeever, and I really appreciate everyone showing up tonight to learn more about some of the new innovative projects that we have planned for this year in Sarasota. I represent Vincent Academy. We're not yet open, but you are certainly welcome to attend or to visit. We hope to open in the month of May. And Vincent Academy will be a vocational training center for folks with mental illnesses. And some of you in the audience might wonder, well, why work? Why is work important to people with mental illness? Years ago, I was working with someone who was about 35. He had schizophrenia, and he had a job. And he told me, if I have a job, I have a chance in life. And I've thought often about him over the years. When we think about folks with serious mental illnesses, it's the disability group with the highest level of unemployment. 85 to 90% of the folks do not work or do not maintain steady employment. And those of you that are family members, I'll start with parents. Those of you that are parents, when your kids get old enough to go to college or to end high school and do something with their lives, you're thinking, will they be able to support themselves, and what career will they choose? Because without a career, what are we in our lives? And so most people with mental illnesses are diagnosed in the late teens and early 20s, and that group becomes largely unemployed throughout their life. So, you know, our nonprofit is called Van Gogh's Palette, named after Vincent Van Gogh, who had a mental illness. We're founded by two parents that watched a daughter cycle in and out of treatment after her diagnosis during her first year of college. She didn't finish college. And they realized that there was something missing in our treatment system. Of course, we have clinical, we have hospitals, we have inpatient, we have outpatient treatment, we have emergency care, we have therapy. There's a variety of clinical services that are provided to people here in Sarasota and really across Florida. But a piece that was missing was vocational training and job placement. And there's really, we were talking before, there's really two aspects to that job or someone being successful. One is preparing them for the job and placing them on that job. And then the second is helping them maintain that job given the ups and downs that mental illness sometimes causes in a person's life. So we're very excited to bring Vincent Academy to Sarasota. Thanks to Bob and Joan Geyer of the Sunset Automotive Group. They are our private partners who are building a beautiful facility for us on Glengarry. And the public partnership is through Central Florida Behavioral Health Network, the managing entity with DCF in our region. So we're very excited to provide these services. We will be able to provide up to 50 or 60 members. The people that attend Vincent Academy will be called members, not clients or consumers. So there's a different change in how we view our folks that attend. And our ultimate goal is to help people lead productive lives. And I guess lastly, I'll say we're not an island. We will count on those clinical service providers. We will count on services in the courts. We will count on housing and NAMI. We will count on our community partners to help these folks become successful. So thank you.
Thank you, William. And now Scott Eller of Castle.
Well, I guess I have a tough act to follow here, but I'll give it a shot. My name is Scott Eller with Castle, and we started operations on January 1st of 1999. We had a checking account with a penny in it, and we had a assisted living facility where we had 38 beds for people who have a severe and persistent mental illness. And as we fast forward to today, we have just come up to 600 beds in 5 counties. And my world is the world of NIMBY, where everybody agrees that people deserve to have a place to live. Just don't do it around me. Well, I do anyway. We typically go into middle-class areas. We have 160 scattered properties in Southwest Florida. Now, some are like the planned residential community that we run at Loveland Village for people that have a developmental disability, and then we have some cluster housing projects, and then we have a preponderance of our real estate are single-family homes, and we also have condominiums and apartment buildings. And what I have always believed is to do something and do it well. But at the same time, I'm cognizant of the fact that we need a system. And part of that system is a recovery to work program, and I'm also very thankful to the Geyers that they have really stepped on a limb to do this. Because the problem that we had is it's wonderful that we put people in a home, and we give them a home. So then what are they going to do? Well, other people, they typically work or volunteer and do things. Well, they didn't before. So this is going to be a tremendous benefit to the people that we're serving. And also with Judge Quartermain, to give an example, on December 27th, the police department came out to my facility and arrested a girl because of a failure to appear in April of 2016. Well, if anybody would have done the research, in April 2016, she was in a state mental hospital. So it's sort of hard to attend a court hearing for multiple trespassing warrants when you're in a mental hospital. And with some strong advocacy, I was able to get her out of jail by 4 o'clock that day. And that was a beautiful thing. And we worked closely with the judge to do that, and also with the Sarasota Police Department. But with really what we're focused on, which is housing, I will give you a statistic that's very sobering. We run a program for Sarasota County called SHIFTS. It's the SHIFTS program. We're taking people that are mentally ill off of park benches and out of homeless camps. And in the first 18 months of the program, we took in 111 people. And of the 111 people that we brought in the prior 18 months before being in our program, there were 667 arrests and 875 charges. We went from 667 arrests down to 3 in the 18 months of our program. So the program alone, with the wraparound supports, thank you, shows that that criminalization of homelessness is real. And by simply just taking people off the streets and having a caseworker go to their houses every day. And what our caseworkers do, we outfit them with a car and a cell phone and a computer so they can do their charting on their online medical record system. We give them a car versus an office because we want them on the streets. We want them going to people's homes. We cannot wait for people to come to us. We go to them. We take them to the grocery store. We take them to the doctors. We're going to be taking them to the Vincent Academy, okay? We do these things to make sure that they do it. We also go to their homes to encourage them to get on and do these things. And it's because of this very simple task on helping people to live life that we're seeing this tremendous success where people didn't have it before, and we're also giving them hope. And what I also call our end of the business is what I call the ultimate estate planning, because a lot of you are parents of somebody who has a mental illness. And one day you're 65, 75, or 85 years of age, and you start wondering what's going to happen to my son or my daughter. And knowing that there's a organization out there that's going to provide good, safe, affordable housing to them and make sure that they maintain their benefits, making sure they get to the Vincent Academy, but also knowing that the Vincent Academy is going to be there, the CTC program is going to be there, NAMI is going to be there, we have the system, will give people peace of mind that their son or their daughter or their loved one is going to be okay. They're going to have a life of their own. And with the number of years that we've done this, we see this over and over and over again. To give you another idea of how this works out, Lee County did a study for people that were on the streets, that were not in permanent supportive housing, or down in Lee County, they have what's called Hope Clubhouse, which is similar to Vincent Academy. Vincent Academy is a little bit more evolved, in my opinion. The acute care cost for people that were homeless without services, $54,625 a year. They took folks in the Castle Home program, tied to the Hope Clubhouse, went down to $6,000 a year. It just shows you when you give people a purpose and a place to live, how it dramatically changes their life. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And now Wendy Abramson from NAMI.
Hi. Can you hear me? Okay. Before I even begin what I was going to say, I have to say that I hear a common thread here, and it is all about recovery through self-esteem. And I really do feel that one of the most important keys to success when you have a mental illness is feeling some part of yourself that you're proud of, and you have a good feeling of self-esteem. And you know, I'm hearing from our first three speakers that is a lot of what their organizations strive to achieve. NAMI is, as Carrie said, a national organization, and here our local affiliate offers all of the things that we offer, we do for free. And our main focus, our vision as an organization, is to reduce and eventually eliminate stigma surrounding mental illness, which goes perfectly with this project and what this whole project, Facing Mental Illness, the Art of Acceptance, is about. So specifically, and I won't get into all the statistics, you can look it up on the internet. I was going to throw some of them out. But what we offer to people who have mental illnesses, right now we have two programs that we're offering. One is a support group, and it's a peer-run support group. So people who have mental illnesses were trained to facilitate a support group. That's offered twice a month at Prospect House on Tuttle, the first and third Tuesdays of the month. All of that information's on our website, and we have flyers as well. This model of a peer-led support group is really nice because people can empathize with the individuals that are leading the group, and it's a safe environment. It's very confidential. Similarly, we have a support group for family members of individuals with severe mental illnesses, and that we hold 4 times a month, once in Sarasota, once in Northport, and twice a month in Venice. And we were trained to lead these support groups. My daughter has bipolar disorder and anxiety, so I lead one of the support groups. And I think one of the most important things about both of these support groups is that there's a community. You don't feel so alone. I mean, when you have a family member, and in my case it was a daughter, or somebody you're close to who's suffering, you're suffering, and you don't really know what to do with that. So if for no other reason, being able to go to a community and have a support group and you can just cry and say whatever you want is really a nice thing. You also get some wisdom and advice from others who've dealt with similar issues. Both the Connection Recovery Support Group, which is a support group for people with mental illness, and the Family Support Group, we really work on group wisdom and trying to help each other with some of the shared experiences. And it's just a place where you can walk in the door and feel like there's somebody else there who gets it. So those are our support groups. We also teach two classes or courses. One is called Peer-to-Peer, and Peer-to-Peer is I think it's a 10-week class, and it's for people who have mental illness, and it's taught by two peer mentors, so people that were trained to teach it who have mental illness themselves. And in that course, you learn about mindfulness, you learn how to manage your illness, you learn how to identify the signs and symptoms and the triggers. So it's a very practical, hands-on type course, and it's held once a week for 10 weeks. And then we have a family-to-family course, which is for 12 weeks, and that course is basically what brought me to NAMI, because I was at my wit's end and didn't know anybody else who had a child with severe mental illness and just wanted it to be over. And I found this course, and it really empowers you as a parent. We had people who had spouses with mental illness. We had grandparents of somebody with mental illness. So I mean, it was, anybody who has a family or friend who has a mental illness. And it's a 12-week course, and you learn about the brain, you learn how it works. It's very empirically based. So you learn the science, but from lay people like us who never studied the brain or medicines, but you really learn and you become empowered. So when you speak with physicians or you speak with a therapist, you understand better how the mental illnesses work. You learn to identify the different mental illnesses, and you have some workshops. So there's skill-building workshops on communication. How do you communicate more effectively with your family member? You learn problem solving, you learn empathy. What does it really feel like to be depressed? What does it really feel like to be psychotic? So it's a really good course. So those are our 4 signature programs, and we also hold monthly speaker series. So we've had, both Scott and William have spoken, where we bring in organizations and experts from the community to speak about different topics. So we have it once a month at Gulfgate Library, and we have it once a month at United Church of Christ in Venice. So the speaker is the second Wednesday of the month at 6 o'clock at Gulfgate Library, and the fourth Thursday from 7 to 8:30 at United Church of Christ, Venice. Our next speaker is April 12th. It's Amy Barr. She's a psychologist who's going to speak and educate people about the brain and how that works. We go to all kinds of events. We speak at churches, synagogues, community groups. We really have become the go-to place for people to call or email when they don't have information, they don't know what the resources are, they don't know where to go. So we do maintain a warm line, a telephone line, as well as an email. And if whoever answers the phone doesn't know the answer, we will find it out and we will send you that information. So we try to be the go-to place. And we hope that when people are leaving the hospital, if they've been an inpatient, or we've had people who are moving down here from other places, and they call us and they say, what is there? I mean, what are you going to do after you leave the hospital? Just come sort of sit at home. And so we want people to have some types of support, and this is what this panel's about. We have a resource guide as well. This is all free. It's on our webpage, NAMI-SarasotaCounty.org. We also have some stuff out there on the table as you leave. Thank you.
Thank you to all the panelists. We are going to get to your questions, but since I'm the moderator, I get to ask my questions first. I know as the parent of an adult child who has a mental health condition that I am often asked and contacted by other parents because my son, and I'm so grateful to say, is doing really well. He lives independently, he has a job, he has a dog, he has a life, he has a few friends. And for any of you who have experienced a family member having a mental illness, that's a big deal, really, to be able to create that. Mm-hmm. So people often ask me, well, how did you do it? You know, what did it take? What went into him being able to live alone or take his meds or get a job or whatever. So I'm always very interested in hearing what does success look like and what does it take? I've been doing a lot of, as some of you know, I've been doing profiles of many of the wonderful artists in this show that are run in the Herald Tribune every Sunday. And just in interviewing all of the people in the project, I see through lines of elements that are necessary, and I think Wendy hit on it very strongly when she said they have to feel something good about themselves. They have to feel some sense of self-esteem. But I'm going to ask each of the panelists to answer this question, and that is, if you could tell, not using any names, of course, but a kind of a success story that came out of your organization or your program, and what did that look like? What went into that becoming a success? So Erica, we'll start with you.
I'll get started. I would say overall we have a lot of success. I mean, there's one specific story I want to discuss, but overall, you know, the 80% of the folks that have been through healthcare court do not recidivize, and with the implementation of CTC, there was an expectation that there would be a lot of resistant people. In other words, the folks who were in the jail wouldn't want to participate in CTC, but it's been actually, in fact, quite the opposite. Many of them are leaping at the opportunity because once they get in and they sober up, they realize, okay, I have an opportunity here, so we're hopeful that they maintain it. But I have a great story, and I have to give a lot of the credit to the director of Healthcare Court, who's here today, Ms. Jennifer Main. Here she is, yeah. She deserves a big round of applause. She oversees our people, and she even does an exercise class with them once a week, so she has an important job. But I had a gentleman in my division who was charged with resisting an officer and trespass at a park, or at a park after hours. And he elected to go to a trial. And the facts of the case were that this African-American homeless man was sleeping on a bench at a park. And he was repeatedly told that he can't keep doing that, and there were laws that say you can only be here at certain times. So it goes to a jury trial. And I remember during the jury selection process, one of the jurors, you know, I read the charge and I say, is there anyone here who, based on the charge alone, feels like you should not be a part of this jury because we need a fair and impartial jury? And one juror raised her hand and said, this is a waste of my time, and you all should have pled this case out, and I can't believe that I'm taking a day out of my life for this. Okay, so I reminded her of the importance of our constitutional rights, and then I asked if anyone else felt that way, and nobody else did, which was good. So then we do finally pick a jury, and the facts were that this gentleman was sleeping, he was asked to leave, and he wouldn't sign the citation, which was a form of resisting. And the defendant ended up testifying, and he said, you know, I've been harassed by these people, and my defense is I'm homeless. I have nowhere to go. So how can you convict me of being in this park after hours? I mean, it really kind of made sense. But what we learned about him was he was almost completely deaf. Like, I mean, could not hear anything. I mean, we had all the special equipment on high, feedback in the courtrooms. We had to switch courtrooms. I mean, it was really interesting, and it, you know, wouldn't make, maybe one would understand why he walked away. He didn't hear what the officer was saying, but he also believed in his testimony that he was being followed by the police, harassed by the police. He had initiated a lot of internal investigation affairs and appeared to be very paranoid. So anyway, he was convicted at trial, so I sentenced him to mental health court. So I will just say that through Jennifer's efforts, he has today, and I don't know how long, was it November? November, so 4 to 5 months. He got hearing aids through a program where he had to do community service to get them. He has a job, and he's living at Castle, yeah. And he came into court on Monday, and he was just like so happy and totally a different person. He had gone from this, like I said, paranoid, homeless, looked homeless, and now he has all of this confidence, and he's like, can I not come to court so much because I want to work more? And I was like, okay, you know. And he wouldn't even talk to me the first day of court. He was so scared. And then we've been able to develop a rapport. But I mean, I will just say that what seemed like such a simple issue, a homeless man sleeping in a park, it was the massive issues of our world balled up into this simplistic contact with law enforcement, where law enforcement has a duty, and there are laws, and it's their job to follow the law. And, you know, I will say law enforcement had given him multiple opportunities, but he kept sleeping there. So at some point there has to be, you know, in law enforcement's mind, a repercussion. But, you know, and he believed that also because of his race, he was being targeted. So you have that, which is a significant issue at a trial, and you have homelessness. And, you know, I guess at first blush you would say, God, this is so simple. Why are we here? This guy's just sleeping in a park. But then it was, when you crack the shell, just this huge example of what we deal with in our society and how complicated and how vulnerable these people are, and how just a little bit of help and encouragement can go a long way.
Thank you, Erica. That was great. William, you have so much story to share with us?
That was such a nice story. I forgot the question.
So the question is just if you could share with us a success story from your organization.
Okay. I think to preface my story, I'd like to say our ultimate goal is to help people lead productive lives, and I think productive and satisfying lives, and I'm guessing that's a common thread throughout your speakers tonight. And you know, that involves a social circle and social supports. It involves a meaningful day, hopefully work or education. It involves family. It involves leading a stable life and a fulfilling life and a financially independent life, I think, as well. So at Vincent Academy and Vincent House in Pinellas Park, what we do is train people, and work is the means for, work is really the therapy for us. So I want to share a story of a woman. She shared her story many times in public, actually to larger audiences than this, and she's given me permission to share her story whenever I would like, so I'm going to use her name. Her name is Chiquita, like the banana. And I was struck by that when I first met her. She was brought into Vincent House by a fellow member and who was a veteran, and he was a neighbor of hers, and he said, Chiquita needs this place. And I looked at Chiquita and I said, would you like a tour? She said, I don't know. What do you do here? And I said, well, we work. Why would I want to do that? That's kind of how the conversation, and she was not I would say she wasn't the most pleasant person at this point in her life. She had an eviction notice. She wasn't in a supported housing program that understood her. She was in a governmental program, and so she had 3 days to be evicted. And so I said to the veteran, I said, so you bring us someone that's 3 days to be evicted, and she doesn't really want to be here in the first place. He said, no, she needs this place. So we sat down with her and got her involved. The first thing we needed to do is to get involved with her housing, and legally changing that eviction notice when there's only 3 days left was not an easy feat, but we managed to do that, and so we got her involved at Vincent House. And so what we do is train people for work. And what happens at Vincent Academy, what will happen is that people will participate in day-to-day vocational training. That could be customer service, it could be phone reception, it could be culinary, helping to prepare breakfast or lunch, it might be data entry, it might be any number of tasks and work. So she got involved initially in the kitchen and helping to prepare food, and that seemed like a good fit for her. And over the next year or two, and I say year or two, from our point of view, there's no such thing as a quick fix for someone that has a serious mental illness and that maybe is 30 or 40 or 50 and has kind of been a perpetual patient in our mental health care system for 20 or 30 years. I don't think there's a quick fix for that. So it's typically 1 to 2 years for people to participate. So Chiquita participated with us, and little by little we got to know her personality started to come out a little bit more, and she began to kind of blossom and be a happy person. And so she said, I'm ready for work after about 1.5 years, and we placed her on a job. And that job, I think, lasted 2 weeks. And she was not happy. She was upset with the boss. They gave her some feedback, not good. We had to take her off the job. But for us, that's kind of par for the course. If someone hasn't worked, she hadn't worked since she was in high school before her diagnosis, so that's okay. If someone works a day for us, you get a day's pay. That's good. A check is a good thing. And so we said, okay, we'll get you back into the fold at Vincent House, and we'll continue to work on your skills, and you worked for 2 weeks, and don't waste that paycheck. And so it was about 1 year later before we got her involved with work again at one of the beach resorts. And during that time, we got to know her, and she told us her story, which was she was one of those young adult mothers diagnosed with mental illness that loses her custody of her child. She lost the custody of her son when her son was a month old. And what she remembers of the incident is that the state told her that she was an unfit mother. And my guess is she was not on the proper medications, but she lost custody of her son. And that 10 years had gone by, and she had lived in depression in her house, in her apartment that she rented for those years before she found Vincent House. And little by little, we started to understand the pieces in her life. So we got her involved at the beach resort. So this is a good 3 years into her rehab, and she did really well. She was such a happy person that she was in customer service, that after her temporary employment there, their seasonal job, they said, we want to keep her. So they kept her on Phillips here. I don't know, she must be there 4 or 5 years by now, right? She's been there 4 or 5 years. She's been Employee of the Year out there. She's been Employee of the Month several times. And sometimes I say to her, I say, what drives you to just exceed expectations and do so much? And she'll say to me, someday I want to meet my son, and I want him to know that her mother made something of herself. You know, so yeah. For me, that's what gives me meaning, facilitating that process. So the conclusion of my story is at Vincent Academy, we don't want to create these cycles of dependency where people are perpetual patients, or in our case, members for the rest of their lives. Our motto is a big door in, but a bigger door out. So how often do we see Chiquita? Not very. Chiquita's too busy for us. I'll say, when you're coming by, Chiquita, I need you to help me do a tour. I don't know, let me check my calendar. She is literally too busy, and that's good, because she has a life, she has her friends, she has her work, and that's what success looks like to us, and that's what we strive for. And we'll be looking forward to working with our partners on that.
I love these stories. And now we'll hear another one from Scott.
For the sake of time, and I want to be able to engage with everyone here, I think I want to share a story with Wendy, if you want to tell it.
We have a joint story.
We have a joint story, somebody we know in common, if you want to
Okay.
talk.
All right. So, about 2.5 years ago, I was running the support group at the Beneva Christian Church, and a couple comes in from Venice. They were desperate. They could not find support anywhere. They were having a lot of trouble with their son, with taking his medicines and his stability and his housing. Fast forward a little bit, a couple of months later, they came regularly every month. This couple reports that their son is now living in the assisted living part of Renaissance Manor, which is sort of the, because there's different levels of housing. It was the one where you get more
24/7.
Yeah, more attention and help with your medicines and with getting to places. And they were very hopeful because they could not have him living at home. It was just not working. And I'm not going to get into the details because many of you probably have heard these types of stories. And they were so excited because he was in this new situation. It was working out well. And there were bumps, but it was working out well. Then the following spring, this couple enrolled and took our family-to-family class. They learned a lot, I suppose, from the class. They continued to go to the support group, but we had added another one in Venice, so they started going in Venice. They didn't have to schlep up to Sarasota. They reported that their son had moved to a, I guess it's the supportive housing, so it's a little bit more independent living. That, you know, there were still some bumps in the road, but he was feeling better because he was feeling more independent and more in control. And then in the summer of 2015, a group of us who had either been in a family-to-family class or two of us had taught the class, we decided that we really needed to strengthen NAMI services and provide more to the community because we really believed in these support groups and in these classes. And we asked the father if he would like to join our board, so he joined our board and was on NAMI's board. His son, throughout that time, who's an artist by profession, was holding down different part-time jobs. He worked, I think, first at a pizza place downtown. He worked at different places, first 1 day a week, then 2 days a week, and then I guess, I don't know if he's full-time or part-time, but... Huh?
He's the personal trainer at the YMCA, too.
Okay, so he's the personal trainer at the YMCA on Bella Vista? Mm-hmm. Okay. And he is one of our artists. His piece is over there. His name's Paul. And I think I like that as a success story because it just shows it all takes time. It takes perseverance. It takes a village. It takes support from all different components of one's life. I don't know if you wanted to talk more, Scott, or I think it's a success story.
Well, the success story is when he moved in, he was very paranoid, and he took a lot of time and a lot of support from our team. And we always encouraged him to stick with it and not to give up. And we had to work with the parents a lot to sort of take their hands off of him so we could help him and work with him. And so, we told the parents, tell him he can't come home. He's got to make this work. And we hired a gentleman, we call him the mental health whisperer. This guy when we met him, had no experience in mental health. This guy was a personal trainer. This guy was a musician. He toured with a group called the Counting Crows. He's also is a third-degree black belt in jiu-jitsu. And I'm like, you're perfect. You're hired for life skills. And we hired this gentleman a few years ago. And besides his very thick Scottish accent, he's been incredible. And he has people doing things and engaging in the community more than anybody I've ever seen in that position. And he's absolutely a wonder, and he worked with Paul because he saw a gift in this man. And he took him to the YMCA to get him start socializing because we couldn't even get him off grounds. It was very difficult to get him off grounds. And like I said, and it went from that to getting a job at the YMCA where he's helping other people in their fitness to where he's now doing that and living in one of our apartments. And I think it says enough that really is the success story, is what you're hearing from William is you're getting people their life back and you're giving them purpose. Isn't that what you said? That's really what we're trying to do here. And so with these success stories, I think that's what we're hearing.
Yeah, and I just add one more thing about Paul. I mean, he came to a couple of the connection meetings, so he did see that there were other people. He wasn't the only one. He was really nervous and very hesitant about the Facing Mental Illness art project. And for whatever reason, he felt enough encouragement, and he came and he participated in one of the workshops and really blossomed. And so I think he's a great success story.
And he did share his story with me. It hasn't been published yet, but that's one of the upcoming profiles that will be in the paper. Mm-hmm. He's just a delightful guy. So I think I'm reminded again and again, and I know it's become trite to say it takes a village, but I think in all the success stories that I've heard, it does take a village and it does take time. There isn't any one thing that turned my son's journey around. It was a whole lot of things and a whole lot of people. And one of the difficulties, if you're a parent who doesn't really know what's out there or how to access it, is, you know, we in Florida, unfortunately, because our spending on mental health is so low and it's such a low priority statewide, it's something that you have to kind of scrape together yourself. There's sort of, it's been difficult to, there's not kind of one overall agency that will give you all the services that you need, and you just show up at their door and they go, oh yes, you need, you know, supported employment and housing, and you kind of end up going to a lot of different places, which is what I ended up doing. And I found it very difficult, and I had been a reporter for 30 years, and I was not somebody who accepted no very easily. So I can only imagine what it might be for someone with fewer resources or less background. So I want to open it up to questions from the audience. So again, if you have a question, if you would step to the microphone over on this side, please. And I'm going to ask again and remind everyone again that unfortunately we don't have time for everyone to share their personal stories. So if you would just ask a question and direct it to whichever member of the panel you think is most appropriate to answer your question.
My question is to the judge. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
The first question is, does Manatee County have a mental illness court like you have?
No.
Yeah, okay. The next question is, are your officers in Sarasota trained to handle mental illness people?
Yes. The county, through there's a lady named Kim Wiles who is tasked with ensuring that as many people can become certified in that as possible, and it's the CIT training. And I would say, I think at last count, at least a third of all law enforcement in Sarasota County, understanding that there are 5 agencies, are trained in that CIT training, which for those of you who don't know is meant to diffuse a situation for those people who have contact with law enforcement and they are mentally ill and it's a volatile situation.
Because, I mean, I found out I have a son who's 55 years old now. He's schizophrenic. And in New Jersey, when we had to get him to the hospital, I had to call the police. And lucky enough, the two of them came. They first asked, well, is he big? I said, yeah, he's a good size. He, oh, better call for a backup. And lucky enough, the officer who came, he was quiet. He sat down. he talked to my son and he gave him the option, how would you like to go to the hospital, in a police car or in the ambulance? He said, I don't want to go in a police car. So he went. Now in Manatee County, he was arrested and it took 3 cops to take him down.
Well, and I don't know.
I mean, you know, they sprayed him and terrible.
I don't know. I think all law enforcement agencies are trying to make an emphasis on CIT training, but also through our grant for comprehensive treatment court, that is a focus that we have.
Okay.
Did you have something you wanted to add?
I would just add that this crisis intervention training is going on across the whole country. And Sarasota is very strong in it, and I guess I don't know about Manatee,
Manatee County is not.
When you call, okay, but when you call just on the off chance that they have officers who are trained, just ask for a CIT trained officer, because they spend a whole week learning how to diffuse situations, how to speak, you know, more humanly to people and giving them choices, and it's a good training.
Okay,
so,
CIT?
CIT, Crisis Intervention Training.
Okay.
Just ask on the off chance they have officers.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. If you'd state your name when you and where you're from when you before you ask your question.
My name is Ava. I'm from Sarasota. This question is directed, I guess, whoever could answer the question for me. I just happened to stumble upon this meeting seminar because I came up to the library. But I was curious, how do you guys get the word out about these meetings that you're giving?
Well, this is a special event that is in connection with the art project that you see here, which was inviting people in the community with mental health conditions to create self-portraits. So this is part of a Herald Tribune project. However, the ongoing meetings that Wendy was talking about are through NAMI, those kind of support group meetings. And then there are also drop-in centers like the Prospect House and Beacon House of the mental health community centers. And either Wendy or I can give you information if you'd like to know more about when those happen. And thanks for being here.
Thank you.
My name is Robin. I'm from Lakewood Ranch, and I have been reading your articles in the paper, enjoying them very much.
Thank you.
And I had a question about the supported housing and employment. I have a son who's 28, suffers from bipolar, and he has tried living independently several times but has not been able to sustain it. Is great at getting jobs and interviewing, but not sustaining it. And I wanted to know, I guess, how people can access these services. Are there certain requirements? Are there waiting lists?
He does have a mental illness, correct?
Yes, he does.
Okay. That's it for us.
Okay.
He's qualified.
Okay.
But there's a theme that is being tossed around here that needs to be stated again, and that is support. Mm-hmm. If he's in my housing, it's not just a place to live. He's going to have somebody's going to be by there once a week, 3 times a day. Depends on what his needs will be. But on top of that, with what the Vincent Academy is going to provide, it's not just here's an application, you go fill it out and get a job. You want to fill in? Sure.
Your son is similar to probably half the folks that will attend Vincent Academy or that attend in Pinellas Park. They can be very good at getting jobs, but they might only last a day or 2 on the job, and they might not have the skills from learning how to take feedback from a supervisor to presentation, any number of things. Mm-hmm. So we take an approach that we want to train people on before we put them on a job. And you know, that, as I mentioned before, that could take a year or 2. It might only take a couple months. But when we're comfortable with someone and their skills and their confidence, our first step is putting them in some type of very supported employment program. And one of our, I've mentioned Philip a couple times, he's one of our vocational instructors. And for instance, Philip is here in Sarasota. He will actually go with members on their first day of job or help them train them on the job so that that transition into the workplace is an easy one so that they have the supports, and as Scott mentioned, supports is key. And so what we do when that person's ready for work and we train them, little by little we back away. We wean ourselves off, and then it becomes their job. And there's different types of employment opportunities, but ultimately we want them to be successful and stand on their own 2 feet. But we realize, just like getting on a bike, you might need some training wheels, or you might need some crutches when you're getting your mobility in your legs back. But eventually we want people to be on their own. So it's a process. It's customized depending on a person's needs.
And what he's also doing is building confidence in the person themselves. And that's really the key. So the common thread, even with the CTC program, is the support. Even the judge is providing support. Okay, and that's really the common thread. And we're helping people live life. And then as they become more and more independent, we titrate the service as they gain their confidence.
Great.
But if you wait around, I'll give you a card afterwards, and give us a call, and we'll be happy to come see you.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
And I think, you know, one of the important factors in both Scott and William's program is this isn't a quick fix type of thing. I mean, it does take time, and I found that with my son too. You know, he started in living in an assisted living facility, and then he went to a group home, and then he went half the time in a group home and half the time in an apartment, and that he shared with someone, and then he went to living in an apartment alone. And so the gradualness of the transition is really important, I think. Do we have another question?
Yes, my name is Steve Remus. I worked for 11 years as a public defender and assistant public defender in McHenry County, Illinois. And I have to tell you, there was no Wendy, there was no Scott, there was no William, and there was no Erica, and there was no Carrie, okay? And in the 80s and 90s, when I was there, I saw the same people in the revolving door. I saw the mentally ill, I saw the homeless, I saw the alcoholics, and I saw the addicts. And I have to tell you that, you know, I'm listening to you folks, I'm crying back here. You're killing me. You really are. Thank you for being here and for doing all that you're doing. Thank you very much. Now, mind you, I cry at Lassie movies, so it's, you know, it's not a problem, okay? So I just happen to be moved by different, you know, by different people today than the Lassie movie people. So there's 1,600 homeless people at last count, when they could be found, in January of 2016. And I know a lot of those folks are alcoholics, they're addicts, and they're mentally ill. And I see them when I go over to the Salvation Army. I see them sleeping on the streets, okay? So I'm going to put this question to you guys, and I know you've got great answers for this. What can I do? What can you do? What can we all do to get the city and the county leaders together to take care of those 1,600 people? What do you think?
Well, I can tell you I've had experience in the past with a county that wasn't so fun. Just Google me and you'll see why. But I'll tell you, as of the past few years, they've been an absolute wonder to work with. And I'm trying to work with the city to do it, and right now I'm having some difficulty there. But if anybody knows me knows that I just don't give up. And I always say that if there's one common thread amongst success, and it's not education or brilliance, otherwise I'd be in serious trouble, it's tenacity and passion, which I seem to have a full dose of. And that's why, again, we started with 38 beds and went to 600. And the board says, when are you going to stop? I said, well, when I don't see any more homeless people. So right now, I have an offer on 2 properties in the city, Beneva Road area, not downtown, so guys, don't worry if you're from the city. And one out of Cattleman Road, and we're trying to get some zoning verifications. If I buy them, my plan is to build a maximum of 75 one-bedroom apartments on them, and also to build a clubhouse. And then what I'm going to do is invite Centerstone, First Up, Coastal to utilize space in the clubhouse for $1 a year so when people come in the door, they can assess the person and find out what their needs are and assist them in those needs as we give them the key to their very own apartment. And so that's something I'm working on right now.
I want to chime in too. I want to say that there's already been, in my opinion, a lot of progress with collaboration, and most notably in early February, there was, pursuant to the grant requirements for comprehensive treatment court, the requirement that our county engage in a sequential intercept mapping process, which was performed by the Della Parte Institute, which is a mental health policy institute out of the University of South Florida. So we had a gentleman come here who is very knowledgeable on the data-based practices of these very issues. And for 2 days, 70-ish individuals from various entities, including the city and the county, and then law enforcement agencies within them, and the different non-for-profits, court people, collaborated on creating this plan. And it's going to be released next week, but I think that what the community can do is insist that data-based practices are used, that we don't make this stuff up as we go along, because I feel like that's one of the reasons we find ourselves in this situation, that we have a long-term plan and that we stick to the plan, because when everyone has a part and everything fits together and everyone's accountable, people are not going to slip through the cracks. And I think that this sequential intercept mapping plan is a good place to start.
Next question.
My name is Idalia. I'm actually a mother of one of the children that participated in the art. And my question to you all is, you know, we're speaking a lot about adults and how to transition them into working and stuff. What are we doing for the children that have been diagnosed at an early age to help them with their self-esteem and acceptance and all this other stuff?
Yeah.
Not enough.
Yeah, not enough. There's going to be a panel on Sunday morning at 10:30 at Temple Emmanuel. It's called a recovery panel. NAMI Sarasota is sponsoring it. So it's Mental Illness Roads to Recovery. And I bring this up because my daughter was diagnosed when she was 14. And I feel that part of the reason that she's doing well is because we were able to get her the help she needs before the HIPAA laws came into effect. And also before some negative patterns went on for years and years and years, and bad coping mechanisms and all. So we here we have a strategic plan, a 3-year strategic plan that we just finalized. And on the plan, we have 2 signature programs that work in the schools that we hope to start early 2018. I know it's late, but, and those programs are, one is Parents and Teachers as Allies. So the parents and the teachers are taught about mental illness and what are some signs and symptoms and how do you speak with the kids. And so it works with like the administration, the teachers to look out for what's going on, to understand it. The other one is Ending the Silence, which is where a young adult someone in their 20s who's in recovery, meaning they have mental illness and they're doing okay, and then a family member who has somebody with mental illness goes and speaks to the health classes or different in classes in the middle schools and in the high schools about, you know what, this is what I went through. This is my story. This is what happened to me. When I felt this way, I cut or I drank or whatever it is. And it sort of starts not to normalize, but make it okay to talk about it. So I'm a real strong believer in those 2 programs, and NAMI does hope to begin those programs. It's going to be hard getting into the public school system and working with the Department of Education. So it will take a lot of volunteers, because we're all volunteers, to come together and help us work with the different schools, and including private schools. So that's what our plans are. As far as what to do right now, you know, it depends on how old you're. How old is she now? She's 10. Yeah. You know, I guess since we don't really have anything that I know about.
Yeah, to me, this speaks to a change that has to happen in our society where we start recognizing mental wellness as being as important as physical wellness, and we start teaching our kids about mindfulness and meditation, and that it's okay to talk about things that may be going on in your head at a very young age. And you know, there are some things you can do as a parent on your own. I wish that we had it across the board in the school system. I saw some little video on YouTube the other day on social media about I'm trying to remember what country it is, and I can't remember where it was, but where they are doing yoga and meditation in the elementary schools. And
I saw that.
Yeah, and it was so awesome, and the kids
Facebook.
talked about it. Like, they were so excited about it and found it so helpful. So, you know, I will say that as parents, you can advocate with the school system. You can say this is something we really see a need for, and, you know, squeaky wheels get greased.
And just one thing, and my daughter was in high school, and we were in Maryland, and there were no programs either there in the schools. Don't get me wrong. It's not like, and in this case, I think it's a problem all over the country. But, you know, I would just go right in there and I would, you know, say, oh, this is why she left the country, by the way. Can she still graduate? You know, and she just blew off a semester. So you really do, you can advocate, and you, and she needs help, but you also need to get support for yourself because it's a long journey.
Right. Thank you.
One of the other fights that I get into is when people tell me something can't be done, I just like to do it out of defiance. But the state was not wanting to give the information, but I finally got it. The state has $400 million that they allocate to the managing entities every year. That is an unmatched dollar, okay? And I always try to find ways to leverage and maximize the benefit to the people I'm serving, okay? And where I'm going with this is Minnesota last year filed a non-traditional state plan Medicaid amendment to the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services in D.C. The whole purpose of it, children's mental health. They're now insuring 50,000 more children with mental health issues than the year before. And the reason I have a vested interest in ensuring agencies like First Up, Coastal Centerstone, and the Vincent Academy exist in programs like CTC is I have a vested interest because without these services, it's going to be very difficult for me to do what I'm doing and to do it well. Basically, these folks make me look good, okay? And so I worked with the managing entities on a revenue maximization bill that we fought the HMOs on in Tallahassee, and we are prevailing. It's not done yet. But if the bill passes, we're going to be looking to do a Medicaid pilot project where we're going to match the $400 million with a federal Medicaid match, which the $400 million will become $932 million at that point in time. So we'll see a $500+ million infusion into the state of Florida potentially. Okay, where do I want the money to go? Not really to my services. My services are not very expensive. But for example, the Vincent Academy is funded at about 45 cents on the dollar. You know, I don't think that's very equitable. I think the mental health agencies need to be funded better. The school systems need more adequate funding because over the past 17 years, we've had a per capita funding decrease in mental health in both adult and children's in the state of Florida, as well as substance abuse. So there's a variety of things that have to happen, but being a good advocate and talking to your legislature to be more innovative on how we draw down our federal dollars. And when they say it can't be done, let me give you this little bit of knowledge. The state of Florida is the 5th largest taxpayer in the United States of America at $123 billion a year in taxes. We're 38th in per capita Medicaid funding, but yet we're 12th in our provision of mental health and substance abuse services because of the innovative approach of the managing entity. Now, people are going to say, wait a minute, we're 50th in funding, and you are right, in state funding, we are 50th. But if we become more innovative on how we match our dollars and put them with a managing entity, we can dramatically change the landscape of what mental health and substance abuse is in the state.
Right.
Hopefully that didn't lose anybody or put anybody to sleep. It does my wife all the time.
I want to
yeah.
try to get in everybody who's wanting to ask a question, so we'll move on.
Thank you. My name is Bob Piper, and William, I think this one's for you. I'm an old-timer who kind of got pulled into the world of Facebook, and I've spent a lot of time looking at things, wondering how to make sense out of them. One of them recently was actually rather slamming a well-known national organization that trains people with mental illness and other disabilities by saying they used a special provision of the law that allows them to pay less than the minimum wage. Not just accepting that at face value, I did a little research, and the other side of the story was, well, that's not a bad thing, that's a good thing, because without that ability to pay less than the minimum wage, these kind of programs wouldn't work. I hope you would just elucidate a little bit on which side of that you fall on.
Good question. We're on the side of integrated competitive employment at the ongoing rate that anyone would get paid. So we work with our employers just like an average staffing agency would work with them. So our folks get on the payroll of that company. In Pinellas, we worked with 64 different employers this past year. Some very good employers, from Fresh Market to the courthouse to the beach resorts and the trade winds. And we don't ask for any exemptions. We don't operate any sheltered workshops. Certainly, I think there's places for that in society, depending on the level of disability. But for us, we're looking for competitive employment, and all of our folks are making at least minimum wage or greater. And often our folks won't even disclose that they have a disability when they're being employed, unless they need a specific accommodation. That mental illness might be invisible to the employer, which is okay too. It really depends on the member, him or herself, if they would like to disclose and ask for some type of accommodations under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So we're looking to integrate society and the workforce without a lot of fanfare.
Thank you. Next question.
My name is Joan Golub, and I have a son with a disagreed upon mental illness. But I've been doggedly determined and have done a lot of research about what sort of support and help is available in Sarasota, and I have found innumerable resources, and it's overwhelming. And my question really is, and a lot of them are legitimate, but a lot of them are not. There are people out there offering their services as mentors, as life coaches, as counselors. There are halfway houses, there are step-up programs, and then there are all these smaller organizations providing wonderful services. How do you put this together, and how do you weed out, as just a person, how do you weed out the bad ones?
That has been our biggest challenge, because knowing all of the resources is so difficult. And, one thing that does kind of set Manatee apart from Sarasota is that everything is sort of under Centerstone, which was formerly Manatee Glen. So that's sort of a one-stop shop. You go in the door. But here we're fragmented. And really, the only way that I have deduced is to have someone who is diligent and on top of things in your program, like I have Jennifer and Adina as well. And you have to have longevity of these employees to know what is legitimate and what is not. And you have to, be willing to get that resource who would know, like Mr. Piper, for example, would know if something was legitimate, or, just ask around. Because I agree, as I have come through cases, a defense attorney will say, well, we're asking for probation and we're going to put him at Sophia's house, which is a recovery center. And then you're like, oh, this is just someone renting out a room who was used to be an AA and needs their mortgage covered. And so you do have to ask those questions. And connect with people who know.
Are they registered?
So,
Right.
so what we did is NAMI put together this, you can have this. It's a resource list for the county. It might not be totally include everything that's kosher or, been checked out, but what we did is we put that together and then we circulated it around with our different board members, many of whom have worked in the community for 30 years at different organizations to make sure that, there wasn't anything that had a red flag. I feel that list is probably pretty solid. It's got support groups. It's got, things related to addiction. It's got housing. It's got employment. It's got, all different types of organizations. It does not have individual providers because we never recommend individual therapists or psychiatrists. But I think that's an okay place to start. Yeah. And it's on our website, too, if you lose it.
And the other thing NAMI can provide and provided for me was I got involved in a support group via the family-to-family course that I took. And often other parents are a great resource, too, because they can say, oh, we didn't have such a great experience with that psychiatrist, or, they may be able to direct you to something.
And that's how Paul's parents found Renaissance Manor, was coming to the support group. So,
right.
That's how people hear about things. Yeah.
Yep. Next question.
My name is Vicki Klein, and I'm from Sarasota. It seems to me like there's a topic here that we haven't touched much on, and that's dual diagnosis, or people who have a mental illness in addition to an addiction. And I'm wondering, how do you address that? If they want to, William and Scott too, if somebody comes to you and asks for help and you're aware that there's an alcohol problem or a drug problem, what do you do? How do you deal with it?
Good question.
You go first, you want to go first? About 60% of our people that we serve are dually diagnosed. It's very common. And the one catch is how do you really know what the baseline is of the mental illness unless they're clean and sober? And so we strongly encourage that they will seek sobriety when they come in the door. If they don't, we typically bring them to First Step and we put them through detox to make sure that we try to get them sobered up, and then we try to keep them sober. A majority of the time that we do, but if anybody knows anything about addiction, is it Bob, 1 out of 37 only seek recovery and keep it? So 36 out of 37 relapse. Unfortunately, it's a part of it. And we deal with it, and quite frankly, we deal with it every day where people just can't seem to do it. And we encourage them. We try to up the ante, go into their Seasons program, I believe it is. Bob?
You're an encyclopedia.
Program called Seasons. It's actually been in existence for a few decades now. I usually think my voice is loud enough. But at any rate, it's a specialty program just for that population. And generally people are with us for months. It's not a short-term program. I just texted Casey Collier, who runs the program, in fact, anticipating I might need this information. Of our graduates, those who are on disability, about 50% leave our program with employment, at least part-time. The ones that aren't on disability, we're way up there. We're probably close to 100%. And it's something that you have to succeed at both at once, because failure on either side of that dual diagnosis equation will lead to failure on both. The other thing I'd like to take this opportunity to put on the table is how important the role of trauma and the PTSD connected to trauma is in recovery from the addiction part. We used to think, as was intimated, that we're first. You got to get people clean and sober first before you can deal with other things, unless, of course, they're in a psychotic state where you have to bring them back with us first. And basically, research the last few years has said, no, 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 no. resolving that PTSD slam from the past into the future has to be first, because no matter how motivated someone is, when they get hit and triggered and bring back the feelings and everything of the significant trauma in their life, they're going to use. That's a formula that's worked their whole life. So we're very involved in working with some local trauma specialists to make sure that we can get a hole in that fence so that they can come through and do the recovery work. So trauma resolution, I would think, probably applies to almost anyone who's lived in our society with a severe and persistent mental illness and the stigma and the way they've been treated. And I would say substance abuse also. We live in a policy for the last 40 years that says they're bad, stupid people who need to be punished until they quit being bad and stupid. And boy, nothing could be further from the truth if you know anyone in recovery. So it's a complicated issue. You throw developmental disorders in there and personality disorders where you have the really bad people who are willing and able to hurt folks. Kind of getting through all of that for each one of your sons and daughters is a very crucial process in terms of that, looking at multiple diagnosis.
Such an interesting point that Bob makes about trauma, and I say this only anecdotally. I'm a journalist. I'm not a scientist, but so many, the vast majority of people that I've interviewed through this project who have a mental illness had some sort of severe traumatic incident in their childhood, whether it was the death of a parent or sexual abuse or whatever it might be. I've just been struck by how many of them have told me. And, you know, you have to wonder, was that incident, did that precipitate coping mechanisms that maybe caused or fed the mental instability or whatever. So I think that's a really good point, that you have to kind of get to the core of the issue before you can start turning things around.
And I think that's where it gets into the whole concept of the no wrong door. And I think, Erica, you're talking about the fragmented system that we have, and that's one of the challenges that we have. You know, for example, like with Centerstone, they do substance abuse and mental health, and it's not done the same way here. While I do value both agencies here, I see one of them really becoming more progressive and engaging on the dual diagnosis side very successfully, and we work with them, and Bob has done an incredible job over there. So again, we bring people in right out of the woods that are intoxicated, but what we do as a safety measure is we bring them to detox to make sure that we can medically clear them, that there's nothing that's going to jeopardize their health when we bring them in the door. And we typically find within 6 months to a year, we visit First Step once or twice or 3 times again. But again, we just don't give up on them. Now, sometimes people are just bound and determined to keep on drinking. So we don't always succeed, but we never quit.
Thanks. Can I ask you to cede the mic to the person behind you, just because I want him? He hasn't had a question yet. Did you have a question? Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. You go ahead, and then this other gentleman can come next.
Okay. I guess I have 2 questions. I work with an interventional pain specialist who offers treatment for substance abuse as well, and I guess other health professionals in the office, other than the physician who has a lot more training and education on the subject, but it seems that they often lack empathy for a lot of the patients and just see them as like substance abusers rather than the behavioral and biological underlying ailments. And I was wondering, since you're all health professionals, thank you very much for putting this on, by the way, and it's beautiful to see this happening in a public area. I was wondering if you have any advice on maybe addressing that issue in the office and trying to help people have more empathy, and then also kind of the same question just in everyday life. Even with my parents, they don't really show much empathy when it comes to mental health issues.
It's a great question. Go ahead, Wendy, and then I just have one thought.
I'm going to start from the bigger picture and then come down to your work and in your house. It's sort of interesting because we got a call from a professor at LECOM, the university, the medical school up here, Lakewood Ranch, and the director of behavioral health, who's actually moderating the panel on Sunday for us. She said, you know, I'd like NAMI to put together a panel for our second-year medical students. So we put a panel together talking about mental illness, and we had 2 people with mental illness on the panel share their stories, and I shared a little bit about my story from the mother's perspective. And then, I mean, there were 200 second-year medical students with their mouths open. They didn't look at their phones, they didn't talk, they were astounded, and then they asked some really honest questions. So I think that, you know, a lot of it is the stigma, and not really understanding that, wow, these people are, you know, they have these severe mental illness, schizoaffective, and the other guy had schizophrenia, and they were, you know, working. They worked at Prospect House. They, you know, one of them went on and got her master's, and, you know, they shared their experience through working, through going to the hospital, through going to doctors, through going to therapists, through going to psychiatrists, with what did not work and what they would have liked to have had those, the medical community do differently. And, you know, I think so many, and this is just my impression from, you know, just sort of being on the outside and listening as well to this professor, because there were professors there as well, that doctors sometimes are, you know, they're under all this pressure to take this test and memorize this stuff, and so few of them really specialize and look at psychiatry, and so few of them understand that your role as a practitioner is, even if you're a dentist or, well, dentist you can't talk, but if you're, you know, a podiatrist or a dermatologist or an internist or whomever, when you're talking to your patients, you should also look at them as a whole person. And I think it's sort of that concept that's lacking, and I do believe that there is some effort to better educate physicians along those lines. NAMI does have a program, which we don't have here, because we can't do everything because we're all volunteers, but there is a program that's for providers, where you actually, we have a program where you go to providers, to physicians, or to you know, different types of medical providers, and educate more about mental illness and how to have empathy and how to understand, how to listen, how to ask the right questions. So, you know, what you're saying is very real. I don't know the exact solution to your particular issue at work, other than share your story. And,
yeah, Wendy, I don't want to cut you off, but
Yeah,
we are just about out of time here. I think personally, obviously, you know this if you've read any of the stories in the Facing Mental Illness Project or in my prior project, which was called the S Word. I think the power of sharing stories is one of the best way to build empathy. Mm-hmm. And I think that's happened every day. I come collect the comments in the comments box on the art exhibition, and people say, wow, I never really realized what it was like for someone. And I think that just speaks to all of us needing to, you know, share the fact that we're human and we're frail and we need support. And so I'm afraid we're just about out of time. Go ahead, Eric.
I have two quick thoughts on that question.
I'm sorry, sir. Can you hang on
one
just
sec? I think at work you just have to set an example, and people will catch on and admire you for how you treat other people. And, you know, what I have found to really capture people's attention on this mental illness issue is to look online at videos of those who are severely mentally ill and incarcerated and find, you know, some good documentaries on that. It really opens people's eyes.
I'm afraid we're going to have to wrap it up. I think most of the panelists here will stick around for a couple minutes if you have another question. I wanted to say that I will put up on the Facing Mental Illness website, which is facingmentalillness.heraldtribune.com, a resource page with all the information about the organizations of the panelists and other resources within the community. I want to thank so much my panel. I think they've been fantastic, haven't they? And thank you all for being here and for caring about taking care of and helping people in our community who have mental illnesses. Thank you so much, everybody.